being part Indian myself. And the blessing is, may the sun bring you new energy by day. May the moon softly restore you by night. May the rain wash away your worries. May the breeze blow new strength into your being. May you walk gently through the world and know its beauty all the days of your life. Thank you.
Ooh, I like that. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, we get to hear Kate Smith.
And now we take great pleasure in presenting to you the star of our program, Miss Kate Smith.
Hello, everybody. It is my happy privilege to introduce a new song, God Bless America. While the storm clouds gather far across the sea, let us swear allegiance to a land that's free. Let us all be grateful for a land so fair, as we raise our voices in a solemn prayer. God bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her through the night with a light from above. From the mountain to the prairie to the ocean white with foam. God bless America, my home, sweet home. God bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her through the night with a light from above.
Okay,
And now we take great pleasure.
we have any guests of Rotarians today? Any visiting Rotarians today? Okay, let's move on. I was at the game Monday night as well. And that's me right here. That's my friend that took me. And I sent the picture to my wife. And the first remark out of her voice was, why does Susanna have a mask on and you don't? So as you can see, we had very good seats, and Susanna is a season ticket holder, and they moved us down to the front row. What an experience when you're right there behind the net, and you can see Cody Bellinger was coming up to bat. It was quite a once in a lifetime experience being that close. Okay, next.
Yes, can I interrupt you for one
Yes.
second?
Yes.
I'm sorry, I was on mute before, so I didn't realize that you couldn't hear me. When you were asking about guests, I would like to welcome our newest member, Carmela Spears, who will be inducted in the very near future, and we're happy to have you with us.
Delighted. Thank you, Carmela, and we look forward to your induction next week. Okay, next. Okay. I always like these little cartoons. And it says, "That's just the interest, sire. They couldn't pay the principal." So the logic behind this is risky loans are subject to higher rates of interest than secure loans. So keep that in the back of your mind. You never want to be caught in a downturn when you're over leveraged. Next. Okay, you lucky people. Here comes the joke of the day. The Pope met with his cardinals to discuss a proposal from Benjamin Netanyahu, the leader of Israel. "Your Holiness," said one of the cardinals, "Mr. Netanyahu wants to challenge you to a game of golf to show the friendship and the ecumenical spirit shared by the Jewish and Catholic families." Pope thought this was a good idea, but he had never held a golf club in his hand. "Have we not," he asked a cardinal, "someone who can represent me against the leader of Israel?" "None that plays golf very well," the cardinal said, but he added, "There is a man named Jack Nicklaus, an American golfer who is a devout Catholic. We can offer to make him a cardinal and then ask him to play Benjamin Netanyahu as your personal representative. In addition to showing our spirit of cooperation, we will also win the match." Everybody agreed it was a good idea. The call was made. Of course, Nicholas was honored and agreed to play. The day after the match, Nicholas reported to the Vatican to inform the Pope of the result. He says, "I have some good news and bad news. Your Holiness," said the world-class golfer. "Tell me the good news first, Cardinal Nicholas," said the Pope. "Well, Your Holiness, I don't like to brag, but even though I've played some pretty terrific rounds of golf in my life, this was the best I have ever played by far. I must have been inspired from above. My drives were long and true, my irons were accurate and purposeful, and my putting was perfect. With all due respect, my play was truly miraculous." "There's bad news?" the Pope asked. Nicholas signed, "I lost to Rabbi Woods by 3 strokes." Okay, do we have any announcements?
I think you need to translate that because some people just didn't get it.
Rabbi Tiger Woods.
That's right.
There you go.
Okay, Diane, you have an announcement for us.
Yes, I do, President Chris. I have 2 announcements. First off, the board, the Westwood Village Rotary Club Board of Directors gave money to the Westwood Transitional Village to purchase backpacks and supplies for kids for the upcoming school year. School starts about the 2nd, maybe 3rd week of August. And so the materials for the backpacks are here. So August 6th, here at Westwood, we will be assembling the backpacks. So it's a volunteer opportunity for anyone that would like to come. We'll probably do it from about 9:30 to 11, maybe 11:30 in the morning. And I will send out another announcement before August 6th. The second announcement I have is the email I sent out yesterday. As you know, we have a brunch coming up this year. The district governor decided to do brunches instead of breakfasts. And it will be at the Proud Bird by the LAX airport. And our own member, Carol Rosenstein, will be the honorary speaker about Music Men's Minds. So please get registered. Let's give Carol a lot of support. It should be a very fun event. There's going to be a lot of music and entertainment. And I'd love if we could have a great showing. Thank you, Chris.
Diane, do we know who else is going? Has anyone signed up yet?
Not through me, they have not, no. So no, I do not know.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other announcements? Okay. Then we are going to start early and give Lynn Rogo as much time as she would like to begin her craft talk. Okay, Mark, you're on. You're muted.
Yeah, it said introduction by John O'Keefe, but
Oh, sorry. I don't see him.
John is not on here. I think you could do it, Mark. I think you know
Okay.
him better than anybody.
okay, let me share my screen and we can get started here. Can you all see my screen now?
Yes.
Okay, honey, you're on.
For those
have
of
to
you, who
unmute.
came, for those of you who came, I'm not on mute, am I? Can you hear me?
Yeah,
Yeah. For those of you who came in after the beginning, I was explaining that this presentation was made by Mark, who is trapped in the back bedroom. So he went through all the photo albums and all the pictures and made up this PowerPoint. So this is Mark's presentation, and I will try to talk sort of with it and around it. Okay, dear. Okay, so Mark wanted you to know who the name of all of my close relatives, grandparents, brother, sister, our children, and grandchildren. So that's them. And let's see, all the grandparents have, well, I didn't say I was ready yet. Go back. All the grandparents have passed away. And actually, a couple days ago was the anniversary. My brother Don passed away 8 years ago of brain cancer. Happened very suddenly. He was gone then in 8 weeks. He was only 67. So he's gone. My sister I have here in Century City. Mark I have here cornered in the back bedroom. And our two daughters, Lisa and Marcy, live up north. And so do our granddaughters and our son-in-law. So, okay, Mark, you can go to the next one. These are baby pictures that Mark found of me. The two on the right are baby pictures, and the other one I think is when I was 9. I was born in 1953, so unfortunately I turned 69 years old in May. Okay, dear. Okay, so that's my father's mother at the top, and the bottom left is my father's father. On the right-hand side, the one on the left is my grandma Ruth, my mother's mother, and the one on the right is my Uncle Harvey, my mother's only sibling. Okay. Mark, yeah. Oh, so this is when we were young. The picture on the left is very soon after Mark and I were married, I think, or maybe we were even engaged. I was young, and then, And the other one on the right was when my parents were older. It looks like before my mother's stroke. So maybe they were late 60s, maybe 70. Okay, Mark. So that's a very young picture of my sister on the left, and this man that she was married to for 5 minutes. And on the right, that's my brother Don and his wife Roberta, whose birthday is today, and their 2 children, Nikki and Mark, who are all grown up and have children of their own. Oh, so when I was a kid, as you know, Mark and I are Jewish, and I went to Camp Hess Kramer in Malibu for about, I don't know, 8 or 9 years during the summer. You get extra points if you can figure out which one is me. I am on all the way to the left, sort of in the middle with hair below my chin, holding on to a person below me. That's me. I used to love to go to camp. It was wonderful. Okay. Okay, so, all right, let me go back a minute because I'm really just following Mark's pictures. I'm really not telling you anything. Okay, so I grew up in Beverly Hills, and I was not spoiled. My parents, my father was from New York, my mother's from Milwaukee, very Midwestern. They went through the war and the Depression. And so I was not spoiled in any way. We did live in a nice house. I did get to go to my father's studio and watch some films being made sometimes. And I had some nice trips. But other than that, you know, we didn't get presents all the times or go to fancy restaurants. You know, we went to Lowry's if it was somebody's birthday. But I had this very normal childhood. Nobody drove me around. I walked to and from school. And if we wanted to go to a friend's house, we walked. So then in the summer, I would go to camp. And I went to religious school, and I attended public school, always Hawthorne Elementary School and Beverly Hills High School. And when I graduated, I went to Pitzer College in Claremont, which is an hour away. And I guess I have never lived more than 2 miles away from my first home, except when I was in college for 4 years. I don't like change. So I came back from college. I was only back for a week. And a friend of mine from high school and knew Mark in college and introduced us a week after we both graduated from different colleges. I went to Pitzer and Mark went to the University of the Pacific. And in about 2 weeks, Mark decided he wanted to marry me. He was 21 and I was 22. And I was a little freaked out by that, as you can imagine. But my mother decided it was a good idea. So a few months later, Mark and I were engaged, and we were actually married 11 months after we met at Hillcrest Country Club. And it was it was low key. My sister had the big fancy Saturday night wedding, and my father had learned that that's a waste of money. So we had Sunday brunch. We had 150 people, and it was very low key. It was very lovely. In those days, when you were young, your mother planned the wedding and you had nothing to say about anything, including the dress. My children don't seem to understand that it's now my turn. They don't feel that way. They still think they get to choose. So Mark and I got married, and I worked at the Department of Water and Power for a few years, and I became involved in Hadassah. We started a new young marrieds group, and that's how Mark and I made a lot of new friends. And then I got pregnant with Lisa, and so we were married in 1976, which was the bicentennial. That was kind of exciting. And then Lisa was born 5 years later. And so after that time, I didn't work. I was a professional volunteer. I volunteered for Hadassah like 60 hours a week. I was the first president of the group. I did many, many things. I enjoyed it very much. I was like the public speaker, the young one that they would point to and send out to speak everywhere. And then Marcy came along almost 5 years later, and they went to public school. They went to Warner Avenue Elementary School here in Westwood. We've lived in Westwood. We moved here 2 years after we got married, and we've lived here ever since. I don't like change. While at Warner Avenue School, I was big on the PTA and did everything, including I was co-PTA president. And I enjoyed it very much. And I was always very involved with the children. I was very lucky that I could be a stay-at-home mom. Mark supported us, and I got to, be there for my kids. And I feel very fortunate, that I was able to do that. So I was the Girl Scout leader for both Lisa and Marcy, a lot of years of Girl Scout cookies. And we would go over to UCLA and we would drive, we would walk back and forth. We only lived like 2 blocks from where all the sororities were. We were on Manning, and then all the sororities are on Hillgard. And the kids would walk up and down selling Girl Scout cookies. And of course, all the sorority girls would buy boxes and boxes from these cute little girls. And Lisa ended up selling 752 boxes of Girl Scout cookies in the 5th grade. And that helped her to get into Harvard Westlake, which is where both of the girls went to middle school and high school. When Lisa was 11, I think was the most difficult time of our life. We discovered that she had something that doesn't happen, that her head wasn't attached to her body. She wasn't fused at C1 and C2. It was very frightening, and she had to undergo surgery, and they took bone out of her backside and put it in her neck with a screw. And she had to be very careful for a long time and didn't get to do what other kids did. No trampolines, no riding on buses without seatbelts, things that sort of separated her from the other kids. They went to Yosemite that first year in 7th grade, and Lisa couldn't go on the bus. She had to drive with the headmaster. So, you know, kids don't like to be different, but she got through it. She was a trooper. And, you know, I continued to be very involved. I was in charge one year of the main event at Harvard Westlake, where they raise a lot of money. But I continued to be very involved with Hadassah. Once my younger daughter was out of elementary school, then, you know, you find you have more time. You're not really driving them around. They're really taking care of themselves. The big one would drive the little one around. So the temple had been asking me for a while, and I said I was too busy. But now that they were older, I became active in the temple, Temple Isaiah, which is on Pico and Kerwood. And I was on the board for 13 years. I was vice president of membership for 4 years and vice president of education for 4 years. Normally people have one job for 2 years, but I found that it took a year to even figure out what needed to be done. So I wanted to take as much time as I needed to accomplish everything. And I'm very proud of the things that I accomplished. The temple had not had a sisterhood in 30 years. And so I decided that we had lost so many older people. Once their kids had been educated, they were gone. So we started the sisterhood, and here it is about, I don't know, 15 years later, and it's thriving with so many members. And so it's given purpose to all these women. And so I'm sort of proud of that. And I continued to work very hard for Hadassah. I was among a group of women, a board that founded Hadassah Southern California, which was putting all of the groups of all Southern California together. And we did all kinds of major things. And I'm very proud of that. Then what happened? As Marcy was getting older, Marcy's the younger one, and she was a senior in high school, I said to myself, you know, the kids are going to be gone, and it's very expensive to have them both in college and then graduate school. We knew Lisa wanted to go to medical school. So I said, you know, I should go to work. So I didn't know what to do. So a friend of mine, who her daughter was Lisa's age, we were Girl Scout leaders together. She said, the money's in sales, come into real estate, we'll do it together. So I studied, I went to a class in person and got my real estate license, and I showed up at her door. I said, here I am. She said, you are? She said, you know, I've said that to so many people, but nobody's actually done it. I said, well, here I am. So for the next 2 years, she taught me everything about real estate. She was an expert in the contract, and I became one as well. And it turned out I was the right place at the right time, because I was 49 years old. And when people do a big transaction for all this money, they don't want somebody that's 20, but they also don't want somebody that's 80. So I was right in the right place. And there were so many people who knew me and my family, and knew us to be honest and hardworking and trustworthy and follow through and all those good things. So that helped to promote my career very rapidly. And after about 2 years, I was so busy. And I said to Mark, I think it would really be wonderful if you left the machinery business and came and worked with me in real estate. So Mark joined me in real estate. And at the beginning, he thought, because he was a machinery sales, that he knew everything. And I said, no, real estate is different. So it was a little difficult the first 6 months because he had to listen to me. But he got it. And Mark made our business very large, encompassing a lot of great elements. And, I'm very proud of what the two of us have accomplished. I've been doing this 20 years. Mark has been doing it 18. I can't believe it. But we've worked with more than 500, we've done more than 550 sales. And I'm not sure, and I think maybe about 250 families, because we've done multiple properties for many people. We've been very fortunate that many of you in Rotary have entrusted us your real estate sales for yourselves and your children and your business associates. And we're very proud that you've all been pleased with our work. And our mantra is, you're not just a client, you're family. And, our kids are gone, and this is what we do 24 hours a day. And so that's the way we treat people. We now, as you know, we live in the high rise. We had planned to do that, but when my parents passed away, my daughter and my brother talked us into it, and we sold our house on Manning and we moved in here to the Blair house. And we have really loved it. And it really helped our business, because a huge part of our business, not all of it, of course, but a huge part is selling these luxury high rises. So it's been amazing. And when Mark went into business with me, he had more time than he had before in his business. And the first thing he did was join the Westwood Village Rotary. And he has gotten more pleasure out of it than all of you can imagine. He loves being a Rotarian. He loves everything Rotary does. He loves all of you as friends. And, it's just been a wonderful, wonderful thing. And now I'm a Rotarian too. So anyway, this is my life. What else do you want to know?
Want me to continue the next slide, Lynn?
Okay, what's on the next slide? Oh, that's Mark being funny, because I didn't want to move far away from my parents. That was us when we were very young. See how thin we were. Okay, what's the next slide? Oh, that's us at our wedding at Hillcrest. I had just turned 23 the week before, and Mark was still 22. We're 7 months apart. Okay. That's us and the kids. Lisa's been married, of course, 14 years already now. And Marcy is dating somebody that we have high hopes on. So we'll see, maybe next year we'll have another married daughter.
Marcy's here, Lynn.
Where's Marcy?
She's here.
Marcy, are you with us?
My personal dating life is not relevant to your TED Talk, but thank you.
Isn't she cute? Most of you know Marcy. She's absolutely amazing. She got her MBA in Australia. She works very, very hard, and she's a marketing vice president, and she's helping Mark and I in our business too with that. And we're very, very proud of her, and we love her very much. Okay, so what's the next one? Oh, these are pictures that Mark found in the back bedroom of Lisa when she was little. The middle one is my favorite. It's Lisa holding Marcy when she first came home from the hospital. The upper right, well, Mark used to ride his bicycle everywhere. And so he rode it up in Bel Air, and he left a note at former President Reagan's house, saying that his daughter in the 7th grade at Harvard Westlake would like to interview him for the Harvard Westlake newspaper. And when the president's assistant called, and said, yes, he could do that. Mark hung up on him. He thought it was a phony phone call. But eventually they got in touch and we went, and that's Lisa when she was in the 7th grade, and us. And she interviewed Ronald Reagan. He was already getting senile, but it was still an amazing experience. And then the picture below is our son-in-law, Anil, with Lisa. Okay. There's Marcy. The upper left is Marcy in Australia at the University of New South Wales, right? In Sydney.
Yeah.
And there she is with her sister on the right. And below, I think that's a trip that Mark and Marcy took to South Africa. And there's Marcy. On the left is her best friend, Jessica. I'm not sure who the one on the right is. And you can see Mark is very proud. I'm very proud too of all the awards she got. That's there. Okay. Oh, on the left is Kira. Kira just turned 9. And on the right is Sonia, who turned, no, Kira turned 9 in March. Sonia just turned 7 in June. They're very cute, but they live far away. Okay. So the below left is, that's when we were in Israel just before COVID, when we met Nurit and the students from GHIS and started working with them. The one on the right, when we were young, we were very involved with a charity that benefited the Technion, which is like the MIT of Israel. And this is the way we used to dress in the 80s, you see, and that was a Technion event. The one in the middle, Mark finds so funny. I've had back problems since I'm 30. And so the physical therapist suggested that if we were going on a 12-hour, 14-hour flight, that I should find out how big the seat is, which you can find out on seatguru.com. And then I ordered from the camping store this raft. And so Mark blew it up when we got on the plane, and I put it on the seat, and I was able to lie down fairly comfortably. Okay, Mark, what else do you have in store here? Oh, I worked for Coldwell Banker for 17 years. And then the last 3 years we've been with Compass, and we're very happy with them. This is the first time, in other words, I worked hard all of my life, but I only started getting paid at age 49 when I went into real estate. This is a picture that Mark pulled out because he found it. This is when the Academy Awards used to be, people sat at dinner tables. It was a much smaller event. And at the microphone there is my Uncle Walter, who's 100 years old and lives down the street. I think on the left is Bob Hope. And on the right down, a couple of people, I don't know if you see my arrow, but that's my father in front of those flowers over there.
Lynn, this was an Academy luncheon at the Biltmore celebrating 50 years.
Oh, is that what it said?
Yeah, it wasn't the awards. This was a luncheon.
Okay. Mark just loves this. I don't like to show this stuff, but these are some of the films that my father and my uncles produced. Okay, you can go past this. I guess that's my father on the right and my uncle on the left, and Charlton Heston in the middle, the Pink Panther, the family animal. And in the middle standing up, that's my father. My Uncle Walter's on the left. And on the right is my Uncle Harold, who was really the head of the company, but he died at age 67. So he died in the late 60s. And I guess this is the TV Times from the newspaper from 1976, when my father and my uncle were both on the Academy Board of Governors, the executive committee. I think my uncle was the president and my father was the treasurer. Okay, so the picture on the left is after my mother had her stroke. You can tell from her mouth, and it was a big anniversary party. We were all there. And on the right is me with Lisa and Marcy and my mom. And the picture below, what did we figure out? Was that my father's birthday?
I think so. Is that the Manning house?
Yeah, I think it was my father's birthday. I don't know, maybe he was, oh, we can figure it out. Lisa was 11. So it was 30 years ago. So my father must have been 70. And that's the family. That's the whole family with everybody. I'm not going to introduce you to everybody, but it's my father's, his brothers that were still alive and their wives and all of their children and our children. Okay. All right. That's my life. And I as I was saying earlier, with Tam, life has really changed the last few years during COVID. And I think all of our lives have gotten a lot smaller. We're home more. We've had to learn to get along with our spouses better because we're stuck with them all the time. We really have to learn to appreciate, what we have in our lives. It's like we have time to do that. We're not running all over the place anymore. I don't know if our lives are always going to be this way. I have no idea. But it's a challenge. But I'm very fortunate to have a wonderful husband. That's you, Mark. Mark?
Yeah, I
That's
hear you.
And very fortunate to have two wonderful daughters, Marcy, where are you, Mars? And Lisa, and and wonderful friends, and all you Rotarians are our friends, and we feel very fortunate. Is that enough? Did I talk long enough?
I think we have some time for questions. Does anybody have any questions that they would like to ask? I think I would like to know a little bit more about the movie business.
Well, I always kind of feel like I was never in the movie business, so I when I was a little girl, my father business was at the Samuel Goldwyn Studios, which are on Santa Monica and Formosa. And he had about, I don't know, maybe 75 people working for him. And when it was school vacation, he would take me down to the office and I would visit with the secretaries, and I got to go and see them shooting some pictures on the sound stages. They made 2 pictures with Elvis Presley that they did right there that were sort of fun. They did one, the party that had with Peter Sellers that had an elephant, and I wasn't aware. And suddenly I saw this elephant coming at me and I jumped and I didn't realize it, but I got in the shot. So they had to redo it again. So I sort of disappeared. But it really was sort of a normal, just going to work with daddy thing. It wasn't anything special. And when I grew up in Beverly Hills, everybody's father was somebody. It didn't matter who your father was. I mean, Steve Reeves' daughter was there, and William Shatner's daughter was there, and Michelle Ritz, whose father is one of the Ritz brothers, and Tracy Burns, whose father directed the Ed Skelton show. So it didn't matter. It was a very equal playing field. And starting when I was about in the 7th grade, I got to go to the Academy Awards every year. It was fun. I went on a few great trips. We were in Zagreb, Yugoslavia. When I was a senior in high school, I got to see Fiddler on the Roof being shot. And you notice we called the movies pictures. We didn't call them movies. My father would say, my picture. And we shot the picture, and then at the end of the day, they would run the dailies, which was the film that was shot that day. We would go into a little screening room and see what was shot that day. my father was really a very normal businessman. He was in charge of the hiring and the firing and the organizing and all of that sort of thing. And he loved his work on the academy. Whenever they had to negotiate, like the writer's strike or the director's strike, my father, was brought in to be the chief negotiator. My father was tremendously respected. He was a very humble, kind of quiet man. But he was a wonderful man. And what was important to him was not the film business. What was important to him was his family. And, I think we all see the results of a lot of children of stars and things today whose parents don't pay any attention to them because they're off doing whatever it is they're doing. We didn't have that. My father was home every night at dinner, 6 o'clock. When I needed help with my homework, he would help me. We had the new math at Beverly High when I got to high school. So he went and took a course in the new math so he could help me. If I had a problem at school or I was in a play, my father came. It was completely normal. We did have copies of all the films. After he finished them, we would have 35 millimeter copies, and we had a projector at home so we could show them on the wall in my brother's room. I knew how to run the projector and change the reels and do all of that. So people thought that was fun. But I also then, when I got to college, had to deal with reverse snobbery. I found out then that reverse snobbery is much worse than snobbery. And it was very bad. And so when I got married to Mark, the very best thing was that I immediately changed my name. And from that moment forward, I never had to tell anybody what my maiden name was unless I chose to, because I wanted people to know and like me for me and not for what my father did.
Hey, Chris, Marcy had a question.
Go ahead, Marcy.
Oh, I had no questions. I just had put a clap. Is that what you? I
Oh, it was
put
a clap. I thought your hand was up.
clap.
Sorry.
Oh, no, that's okay.
These
I know,
kids do all the modern things.
So you said something early in the talk that caught my attention. That your mother thought it was a good idea that you married Mark. Could you elaborate on that?
Well, I'll tell you, my mother met my father, and it was before World War II started. And my mother got married to my father right away. And even though she told me that she was dating, you would date a bunch of people. She said you'd go out for one date and then you would come home and get ready and go out on another date the same day. It was pretty funny. And my father, this tall, skinny guy, and she decided to marry him. And it was just before the war, and they didn't really know each other. But they got married, and my grandmother said, "You better have a baby right away and keep him from going in the army." Turned out my father was 4F anyway. And so my father worked, not only his regular job, but he worked, for the military. They all had to have a military job too. But my mother felt that it was better not to know each other very well when you got married. She said, all these people that live together, then you get married and the next day is the same as the last. What was the fun in that? That when you get married and you don't know each other, you have the fun of getting to know each other, and you're young and you grow together. And that was the way my mother thought it should be. Oh, and one more thing. She said, you should always marry somebody who loves you a little more than you love them. And Mark was crazy nuts about me. First, he said to me, I never go out with the same girl twice on the weekend. And then the next weekend, he asked me out Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. On our second date, he took me to dinner with his parents. I mean, it was crazy. It was crazy, and I was scared, right before the wedding. I said, I don't even know this person. What am I doing? But, it's 46 years later, so it must have been the right thing to do. My children think I was crazy, right, Mars? But it worked out, Marcy. Here you are, right?
Chris, Benjamin has his hand up, Chris.
Go ahead, Ben.
Lynn, I want to ask you, do you have any outtakes of the Pink Panther? Because by the way, that is my favorite. I laugh every second when I watch Zip It, Zip It. But do you have any outtakes from that that you would share with us at some point?
I really don't. I don't have any film anymore. The film that we had, the 35 millimeter film, you know, we didn't really understand in those days, and we kept it in the attic, which is very hot. And so it sort of spoiled the film. So I don't have any film, and they don't even have film anymore. They put it onto other things. So I don't, I'm sorry. We might have some old, if you want to look at some old Pink Panther cartoons, but I think they're, Mark, aren't they on like old fashioned cassettes and stuff?
Yeah, they're on CDs, Lynn, all the Panther cartoons.
Oh, you moved them onto CDs? Oh, if you want to see some Pink Panther cartoons, we can loan you that.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else? Any other questions?
Marcy's upset, Lynn, you didn't mention her dog.
Oh, so Marcy had wanted to get a dog, and I kept saying it's such a big responsibility, and you travel all the time. So finally it was COVID, and she got a dog, and his name is Rugi, and he's the cutest little thing. She's going to show you Rugi, I'm sure. There's Rugi the dog. Isn't he cute? He's a Brussels Griffon. He looks like an Ewok, and he's a very loving, sweet dog. And when she goes away, she lets Mark and I take care of him, and Elena, and we love him. He's very sweet. Yes, I see you, Rugi. I miss you. I'll tell you a couple of stories since you guys all like this sort of thing. So when my father made a movie called Cast a Giant Shadow, which was the Mickey, what's his name? Mickey Manners, or anyway, in Israel, it was a big story. And Frank Sinatra was in the film. And Frank Sinatra decided that his part wasn't big enough, or, you know, Kirk Douglas was a star. And so he didn't like it. He wasn't the star. He decided he was going to leave. So it was Israel. And so the government wouldn't let any plane take off with Frank Sinatra in it. He couldn't leave. Peter Sellers was really crazy. That wasn't just him in a movie. He was nuts. That's why he could act like he was nuts, because he was. And Marilyn Monroe was in one of my father's pictures, Some Like It Hot, in 1958. And she was a very sad person. And sometimes I think my father once even went, because she missed her call at the set, went to her house to wake her up, you know, and bring her in. You know, she was a troubled person, and it was very sad because she was very talented. So that's a couple of stories.
I'm looking at the cast of Cast a Giant Shadow. It was Kirk Douglas, Yul Brynner, John Wayne, Frank Sinatra, Senta Berger. So I'm not quite sure how Frank Sinatra fit in with everybody there.
You know, I haven't seen the film in so long. I'm not sure either. Wait a minute. What did I just think of that I wanted to tell you? Went out of my head. But a lot of interesting things happened. Fiddler on the Roof, when it was released in 1971, I was a freshman in college, and that December, I went, my parents and I and my uncle and aunt and my cousin Ann, we all went to Israel together for the premiere in Israel. And I got to meet Golda Meir and Moshe Dayan, which was very exciting. And Topol took us around the city and all of that. And Golda Meir said, Shana Maidala, which means pretty face, which made my father happy. And actually, Golda Meir went to high school with my mother's mother, Grandma Ruth, in Milwaukee. That's where Golda Meir was from, was Milwaukee, like my mother. You know, I mean, there are lots of little stories, little vignettes, and but really, seriously, the bottom line was it was very normal. You know, I didn't, you know, we never had a Christmas tree because we're Jewish. And of course, all kids want a Christmas tree. It doesn't matter that they're Jewish. So my father made a film called Fitzwilly with, oh my God, why can't I think of his name? Tall, skinny guy.
Van Dyke.
Dick Van Dyke, that's him. With Dick Van Dyke and Mary Steenburgen, wasn't it with her? About the Great Gimbels robbery. And so they had all of these trees like they had in Gimbels with green balls all over them. So I begged my father and he brought one of them home so that I would have a Christmas tree that year. I was very excited. Kind of hard to decorate something with all green balls, but that was my one Christmas tree.
We got a question. Go ahead, Phil.
Lynn, I just want to say that Fiddler on the Roof is my all-time favorite musical. I know every single word to every single song, and I actually went to the sing-along a couple years ago that they have down in Santa Monica, where the whole audience would sing along with the movie as it was playing. It's just
Wow.
one of the most incredible movies of all times.
Wow, that's wonderful. Thank you.
Steve had a question.
Yes,
Go ahead, Steve.
I do. Lynn, that was a fantastic talk. What a fantastic life you've lived. And
Thank you,
the only
Steve.
thing I don't understand is how you decided to marry your husband in spite of all of the things that go on.
It was my mother's idea.
It
She
was
thought it
your
was a
mother's
good
idea.
idea.
So my question is, your time in the real estate business, it's been a dynamic time in real estate, and how has the business changed from the time you entered it up to the current time, if you think it's changed at all, or is it the same? Is it the same craft?
Well, you know, it's changed a lot. It's very interesting. When I first joined it, it was not on the computer. You couldn't see the multiple listings on the computer. They had big books and you would look up homes and things on that, which was quite difficult. And then they finally got something, a computer program where you could see some things. So the modern MLS where everybody can look and everybody can see everything, that really didn't happen until, I don't know, maybe 8 years into my career. And you know, we've been in it long enough that we see what happens. It's like the stock market. It goes up, it goes down, it goes up, it goes down. But like the stock market, it ends up eventually higher. Now, what's going on now, the worst downturn in the 20 years that we've been doing this was in 2008. At that point, when the market crashed, people were scared. A lot of older people who took money out of their homes and invested in second trust deeds were in big trouble. And so kids who thought they were going to inherit their parents' money, we had to sell their luxury condos and they had to move in with their parents. It was very sad. And houses came back in about a year because young people buy houses and they have good jobs and they want to move on with their lives. But older people buy luxury condos. And so it took 5 full years for the luxury condos to come back, to people start buying them and the prices start going up. And actually, whereas between 1989 and 2007, luxury condos went up twice as fast as single family homes. After the 2008 situation, it's the opposite. And these condos are not worth much more now than they were in 2008, which is really crazy. Some of them went down in value as much as 50% during that time. So it took a lot to come back. So then during the beginning of COVID, it was extremely quiet. Then we had another like 6-8 months, nothing was going on. And then all of a sudden people were tired of being wherever they were. If they were in a high rise, they wanted to get out of there and go live in the desert on the ground and walk around. If they were in a house, they wanted to go and live in a high rise where they felt safer and there was a pool and different things like that. So there was a lot of movement and people had passed away, but the families hadn't sold the units in the houses yet because of COVID. So there was a huge glut. There were lots of things for sale and lots of buyers. And Mark and I and every single other good real estate agent was hugely busy. For a year, it was just like nuts. And then, of course, what is it now? About 4 to 6 weeks ago, when the interest rates went up, the market stopped. And when I say stopped, I mean stopped, right? Fortunately, we had sold most of our listings. We have 2 condos that nobody's coming to see, and we have 2 more to put on that nobody will come to see. It's very frightening. Houses, people are still sort of buying them a little bit, but we get sent these, what do they, Mark, from the title company sends them, and they show you what's going on. Oh, allergies, a lot of dust at Mark's desk. They show you, and these reports that I looked at yesterday completely mirror what we're seeing, which is the housing has gone down, but it's still a tiny bit of a seller's market with houses. But with the condos, it is now a buyer's market. So what that means is buyers have their choices. They can buy anything they want. So when you can buy anything you want, you don't want to buy anything on the front of the building on a low floor. Houses you don't want to buy on a busy street. So all these things, you could sell anything during the last year, anything. People just wanted to buy something. They were overpaying for things right and left. We would have multiple offers on condos, which we never had before. And now it literally has stopped, which is, you know, you get that feeling. I remember getting it in 2008, like, oh my God, I'm never going to sell another house. Nothing is ever going to happen. But of course, now I've been doing it long enough that I understand it goes up, it goes down, it goes up, it goes down. And so just like I said to my sister, don't sell your stocks. We learned that in the 90s. You don't, just wait, it'll come back. I hope I'll still be alive when it comes back, but you know, it'll come back someday. You know,
Lynn, I've got a question for you, and we're going to have to wrap up. We're almost out of time. I think what would interest me are appraisals coming in supporting what the pricing is for the market.
yes, we have not had a problem with anything appraising.
Okay.
Yeah, I got one good question. Maybe Lynn, we can do this offline. Has the short-term rental market affected the sales of condos and houses in this area, or has that had nothing to do with anything?
I think it's two separate areas. You know that there was that law passed last year, that terrible Proposition 19,
Yeah.
which really changed a lot of things. And so all the major buildings that had rules, you had to own for a year or two before you could lease out, so there wouldn't be too many renters. Well, you know, there aren't enough places for people to live. So now this law is passed and anybody can rent out anything they want at any time, and nobody can say you can't. So it's not advertised because nobody wants to have all renters in their building, but it has changed things quite a bit. People who would not have bought before because they want to rent it out right away, they're going to go ahead and buy. And we had a lot of people, Mark and I have a couple of buildings, and during the height of COVID, they started moving out. And suddenly we had vacancies where we'd never had them before because people were going far, far away. Why should they pay the rental prices here in the west side of Los Angeles when they could go live in Riverside and work, right?
Right.
So now the renters are coming back. The prices aren't going up for, you know, it's actually very good prices for rentals right now. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, maybe
Well,
I'll
I
chat
think-
with you offline. I'll
Yeah.
chat with you offline.
Thank you, Phil. All right, excellent, Lynn. I love your family background. I love your comments about Mark. I understand that he has a messy desk. I understand that he doesn't clean it enough. But I also like the insight into the family and very much appreciated you sharing with us today. So thank you so much.
Thank you for all being here. And thank you, Marcy. It was very nice of you to come.
All right, next week, we have a presentation that's called Ready to Succeed. It's a group who helps LA foster kids get acclimated into college. So I think that's going to be very interesting. I have, unfortunately, some sad news. If you haven't heard, Ed Jackson's wife passed away. And so please keep Ed Jackson in all of your thoughts. With that, we are finished, and I look forward to seeing you next week. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. See you. guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye.